Okay, traders. Now, welcome to the session here, the training session on MetaStock. Now, showing you how to make your own screener, okay, on the monitor pages. This is this can be really important because the pages I use, the main screener pages, they guide me around the market, right? I don't have to go looking to see what is impacting what. I can see very clearly by looking at the specific way I set the screeners up to see what activity it is. Now, I've got a couple of, probably three main screeners that I use. Okay, there's the global markets, which is this one here. Okay, I've got the equities at the top, US equities, then Asia Pacific, then European. Flows into the major currencies, then commodities. I've got US treasuries, and then the sort of global 10-year bonds. And then on the right-hand side, I've got each of the major currencies, right? So, and actually these are all relative strength. So some of these that are quoted the other way around, I've flipped them to so you can see very clearly, is euro going up or down against, you know, every, or sort of the major pairs. And then you can sort of really isolate where there is weakness and strength across the board. Okay. So that's one of the key ones. It's just a good overlay for me to look at. Now, if I'm looking for something a bit more specific, then I've got my follow the trail, right? And, you know, if you guys sign up to MetaStock, you'll obviously get these templates, but you've got the North American equities at the top. Now, if we have a risk on, risk off profile, that'll be reflected in the currencies. And you can see the NASDAQ and the S&P mini there's going up, giving us a risk on profile. You can see very clearly that that is flowing into the currencies. And that should make you comfortable where price action is going and what is actually happening. So, and then if you want to take that a step further and you're not sure, you can have the risk on, risk off pairs. Now, the risk on, or the risk currencies, right, are Aussie, Kiwi, and CAD traditionally, right? That's what we're talking about. So I've just got those highlighted. You can see those pairs just going up at the moment. Then you've got the safe havens, okay, gold, whether it's the dollar, yen, Swiss, or even the cryptos at this stage, like Bitcoin is really behaving like a really good safe haven. And then you've got the components of the oil trade, the rest of the commodities, you know, US treasuries, risk reversals, and then the currencies, once again, relative strength on the right-hand side. So this isn't there, like a lot of people sort of set these up and, you know, they show their friends and go, look, I'm looking at the market, but they've got to mean something to you. So me showing you how to do these screeners will allow you to add your own personal touch onto the screens. So then you can follow exactly the way you look at the markets, right? I do show everyone how I do it, but as you develop your skills, you should be in a position to go, you know what, I need to fine tune things. And it could be a situation, if I just come back to that other page just for a second, where say, for instance, you're in the UK, right? So you might, up here, you might just have UK equities, right? You may have the currencies, but you may have sterling over here as the instruments you're looking for. And so you can really fine tune it to your own location, personal preference, profile, all these sorts of things. The other one is a big giant screener page where I've just got the relative strength of the dollar against sort of everything. So I can see what's happening across the board with the dollar. And then obviously euro, sterling, you've got Aussie, Kiwi, CAD, okay, the risk pairs, and then you've got the safe havens over here as well, right? So that just gives me a good overview. I like the, and this is really coming down to personal preference. I like the way, and I'll show you how to do this, looking at the heat maps, right? Whether you like it this way, there's a whole different range of ways you can do it. But there are a couple of key features here that I think are worthwhile, you know. Anyway, let me just get into it and it'll make a bit more sense to you. All right. So if I just come back to the global markets page now, if you do have, there's two platforms as well, right? There's LSEG, London Stock Exchange Group has bought, well, Refinitiv bought MetaStock and LSEG bought Refinitiv. So they are using the same platform. There's a couple of little differences, but the monitors are exactly the same. So whether you're using LSG or MetaStock icon, they are the same. thing, basically. Now, up the top right-hand corner, there is the icon, right? So if I click on that, what you're looking for is the monitor, okay? It's like I can't click on the pen whilst that's there. So if you click on the monitor, okay, you'll get a page popping up on one of your screens there. Now I can pull that out of the major page and just make it a full screen. Now, if you've got access to this, I actually did post just a short while ago the templates in here, right? My sort of, well, the major templates, I've got the global markets, okay, which I just showed you. And then you've got my follow the trail. And then I just, for example, I just put in there the global equity markets, right? Because then you can sort of really, you'll start to see, you can actually build templates here to make it super easy for you to understand what is actually happening in the market. And the idea is trying to identify what is driving what, because when you know where the focal point is, you'll know whether it's the way the markets correlate or they impact each other, what the next impact is going to be. All right, so now just coming back to this page before we start getting into, right, should have shared the right screen. Okay, before we get into this, so the key one to these screeners, right, and it's just a bit of experimentation, but starts with the RIC code, right? So if you get the right code, you can get those off the templates, then it makes the job easier. Now let's just get back onto our page and I'll show you, just run you through the bits and pieces here. So you've got a monitor page here, right? So you get at the top and you want to give these things a heading. Okay, so for instance, I duplicate the my follow the trail. I'll just do the start of this and it will make a lot of sense. You want to insert a header row, right? Give it a name. Okay, so at the moment I've called mine North American equity futures. I mean, you can actually just call US equities or whatever you want to do. But just make it so you know exactly what you're looking at and you've got your name there. So now I tell you what, looking at a blank screen and with no color, and this is why I put color into using the heat map and a few other things, it's to sort of brighten my day a bit. So now right click on that header, you can come down to header row colors, just come down and you can choose anything you want, right? You've got the whole spectrum of colors there. I'll apply that text color white and just hit OK. And there's a nice funky page there. Now, so now from here, it just comes down to the RIC code. So you can just double click on that or just leave it there and type in some RIC codes, right? So say, for instance, you want to get the Dow Jones Mini, right? Where we do have access to that. So you can just type in DJ Mini and then you want to sort of come through and sort of find out which one we're on. And actually, let me just come back. I've got the caps lock on there. DJ Mini, and then you can sort of come down. There's a whole range of them, right? So the main one I want to sort of click on is this puppy here. I like to sort of like June, you know, it give it a bit of time. So you can see the data coming up here, right? And I already have a few things laid out, okay, at the top. Now, just with that, let me just get my pen over there. Right, so you get the RIC code, and once that's there, it'll populate depending on what columns you've got set up. So there's the name last, the daily change, daily percent, and then you got the week to date, month to date, year to date, and the yield, right? Now you can choose the columns as you see fit. Now, and there's a range of things here too, because see how the bar here, it sort of shows you a bar, right? And that can either be sort of good for you or not. I used to use the bar, but I ended up changing it. Now, if you wanted to add an extra column in here, or even say change the yield, right? You just double click on it. And say I want to get the intraday range feature. I just type in intraday and there'll be a whole range of intraday things coming up with that heading. Now, the top one there is the one I want to get. So say I've got that sort of set up and then I want to, I want to bring it over here so I can sort of see what's going on a little bit closer to the action. All right. So then I can just widen that out. You can just slide the columns along to make them fit a little bit tighter, give yourself a little bit more real estate. And then we can come back and sort of change some of the names, etc. once we get things rolling. Okay, so from here, let me just roll down and give you a couple of others. And just going off the template that I put into the Discord there, you can follow these RIC codes, and it's just a matter of just punching them in, right? So just looking at my template there. Well, now don't worry if you make a mistake, you can always go back and just correct it. Okay. Let's get a couple of more. Because like all the features of MetaStock, once you understand how to do the things, then it becomes sort of child's play. Then it's just a matter of experimenting with what you like to see and the way you want to see it. Okay, so let me just get okay, so there's, say, your North American equity futures, right? Now, if I want to make another list, say, for instance, I put, say, Euro, right? And I just whack that in. And I'm like, oh, hang on a second. I've got my Euro is in amongst all the North American equities. So what you can do is just click on the left click on the column, on the row, sorry, right click and just go insert header row. Okay. Then if I want to put in there the major currencies, okay, just so I know what they are, I can just type in major currency pairs and then left click on that row and come down. For me, I like to give it a bit of color. It sort of separates the columns a bit, right? Now, I know that strong pink is a little bit hard to look at, but in actual fact, it's hurting my eyes. So what I'll do is I can just come back and give it a bit of a softer touch. That's probably too soft, but we'll just leave it there for the moment. And then once again, with the majors, it's pretty easy, right? So you just equals. And I like to sort of set these up, right, according to like the profile, the way they're quoted. So if I want to see a risk on, risk off profile, I always put Euro, Sterling, Aussie, Kiwi together, right? Then I can add the dollar index, okay, as a reference point for the start of the dollar pairs. And then you've got the Swissy, the yen, and the CAD, right? So you can see how easy that is to build those pages. Now, if you're looking at the various aspects, now, once again, at the top here, you can drag the columns across pretty easily, okay? So, but what I can do is I can actually change things, right? So if I right click on the daily change there, and I go to format, actually, I don't want to, I just actually, well, let me just stay here for the moment. Because what I want to do is change the name there, but I'll come back and do that in a sec. So this is a number, right? The daily change, it's like the net change. So what I can do is I can make it a heat map, and you can have it blinking based on this column. Okay, decimal place is 4. Now, if I hit OK, I've centered the cells. Okay, so that will sort of now flash red or green depending on what's going on, right? And it should keep the numbers white, which is, so you're not getting distracted by the numbers. I've got the last number here, the last movement as a color base. Now, I don't want to do that. Up the top here, you can see rename label. I'll just call it, say, net change. Whoop. Or you can call it daily change, whatever you like to have. So you get the net change, you got the intraday high and low, and then I got the daily percentage and these things here. See, now there's two ways you can do it, right? But you can have the bars. So if I just right click on the column at the top, come down to format. Okay, now this will give you all the options. Now this is a percentage, so it's best to have it set up as the value format percentage. Now the display type style, you can have it general, bar, heat map, or conditional color. And if you hit conditional color, you can actually put it above a certain level or below or equal to. and that will sort of set the color tone. Now, the easiest one, I think, you either go for a bar or a heat map, right? And you know what? You may not be into the colors. You can actually come back and change the conditional coloring to what you like, or you can just stay with the general heat map. Percentage, have it blink, okay? Now, if you want the color text based on net change or something else, well, then you'll come into, I think it's the general there, and you can actually change that as well. Now, heat map will give us what we need, okay? And as you can see, instead of like just getting swamped by all these green, I mean, it's the same sort of thing. It's just, as I said, it's a real personal preference into that blink background or not. Now, one other thing, there is a setting actually in the actual settings where you can actually change the whole settings here to be blue and a whole range of things. If I just come down to preferences, I think it's in the main settings. I'll come back to that. So you just got to make a bit of a choice here what you want to do as far as adding some sort of blinking feature here, right? Now, week to date, month to date, year to date. Now, there's other things you can put in here. Now, one thing I like to know is the time. Like some of these instruments may not be updating as regularly as you want. Now, if I just come in and format that, I'd just like to sit that there. Okay, so I've got the time once again. And with some of these instruments, like especially the equities, you want to know if the price is current. So I'll just put the date, like you want the date, the current date in there. And once again, I'll just center that. So I'm a bit of a stickler for getting things exactly the way I like it. So the time, now you might be sort of thinking, okay, this is great. I might just put the time over here next to the RIC code. And then you get the time there. Now, once again, this is obviously personal preference. So you can see the updates according to the time. Now, sometimes you can sort of get lost with it over there. There's so much data. So you can bring it back to at the end of the column, and you can just sort of see, okay, when was this thing last updated? Now, up the top here, you can see I've dragged NASDAQ above the top. So just click on it, and then left button, just drag it back down. Okay, and it's back into where it needs to be. Okay, and then you can start moving these things around just by clicking on them and dragging them up or down, right? So that one there's not behaving for me. The rest of these columns, well, once again, just experiment. So right click on the column, come to format, and then you can see the profile at the top here, bar, you can just go general, right? Just have it as a number, and that will just obviously stay in the color that you want it. Now, you might just go, well, you know what? I don't like the blink. Okay, so then you take it off blink, and it just shows you the change here, the week to date change in a color. Okay, you know, I generally like to see, like, make it as powerful as I can. So I'll have the thing blink, and then also make it a heat map, cell in the middle, blink background based on this column, and then you've got it there as well. All right. So and you can just go through and just set your columns up. Now, if you're looking at bonds, right, you're probably going to need the yield in there because that's sort of the only part we get set up. I mean, we only, for those, for the bonds, it's really the only sort of bit of data. Once again, just coming into the yield, you can go percentage to like heat map if you like, and just put sell right in the middle. So if I did come over here, let me just move my pen for a second. Right, and now you can just go down anywhere here and just type in a number, and it will come up on your page, right? So, oh my God, it's just thrown itself straight up there in the middle. Right, we're gonna have to set up another heading. So what you would do is you set up a heading here, insert header row. I just double click on that. We should be able to do it. Okay, so if I just put US Treasuries, once again, just right click on the row, come down, choose the colors that you want, and then you're on your way, you know. Okay, so once you've got the header, then it will start to categorize where they are. If you just put it anywhere, it'll go back into the list. So and that's it. So then you'll start to see the yield over here. If I just get the pen, right? You can see where this is starting to come into play. And then you can sort of keep, like, it makes it easier to see, is the yield on the US treasuries going up or down, right? And that's, so what I would generally do is so you get a good cross section. You got the US 3-year, 5-year. Now, what I can do at the top here is just widen that out so you can see what you're doing. Okay, 5-year treasuries, 10. Yeah. Okay, now I think I've actually set these up. Now, if you click at the top here, depending on, see the time. So there's one thing that's dominating. You can see that they are sort of changing around. Depending on the time, all these columns will change. So what you can do is you can either have it set so the most recent update goes to the top of the list. But if I come up the top here, click on time until that arrow goes off, okay, then you can actually sort of get some formation here around keeping these things in line. So once again, if I click, you can put daily percentage change. You can have the worst change at the top, and have it scaling the other way, or the other way around, or just have it basically the way you set it up. So you can actually change the way these things come up on your page. All right. Okay, so there's your treasuries, and this is why we would have the yield in there. Now, what you can do, right? So you can see exactly what's happening there. And this is a really good idea, especially if you are building pages around templates. Now, what I would do is if I had bonds, and I haven't sort of fully laid this one out. Well, I actually have, but let me just change the screen here. Right, so if you come over here to the bond page, you'll see that pen. Where's the pen? Okay. You can see here I've got the US Treasuries, Aussie bonds, Kiwi bonds, Sterling bonds, German bonds, Swiss, CAD, Yen. Right, you can see them all, and you can see what's going on, especially with the yields. All right. Now, this is not a bad example for me to sort of update. So if I wanted to change the yield here to, say, a blinking background or not, okay, so I wanted the damn thing to blink, I come up the top here, percentage, I go heat map, and let's just have a look there, and you'll see it'll just give you the heat map of what's happening with the bond movements. And you can sort of see just on a visual basis that okay, the German bonds aren't moving up as high as the US bonds, and even the Swiss ones are a bit colder, and the yen very cold, right? So you can see what's moving against what, and that could sort of give you some sort of basis for, okay, hang on a second, maybe I should be buying, because this is all about interest rate yields, right? Maybe I should be buying dollars against the yen. Anyone seeing that in the markets? Well, clearly, right? You can see that very clearly. So you can sort of match up the bond movements with, what impact it has. This is like an interest rate differential, so to speak. So, and what else is going higher? Well, the Swiss bonds are icy cold as well, right? So you can see a part of the reason why dollar Swiss and dollar yen are higher, it's just basically the bond yields, right? It's just the shift in like interest rate differential. So that's exactly an application of where these screeners can come into play. All right, so just go through and work with this, because there's, and some of these instruments like the bonds don't have the week to date, month to date, year to date, but they do have the yield. right? So you can sort of keep up to date with what's going on. They do have the range, so you can see where these are as you sort of scroll down through the page. And you can do the same for the equity markets, right? So then you can start to see how build a relationship between, equities, bonds, and then the currencies. And for instance, you might have on a page here, like you build up a safe haven page. And this is something I might do after this is, I have my safe havens in play, but maybe I have also just US bonds, Swiss bonds, and yen bonds. Put those there with the safe haven currencies and see what's happening on the dollar and see how the relationship between these impacts the movement of those specific major pairs. Okay, the US or dollar Swiss and dollar yen. Okay, so bonds, we can do the same for, as I said, equity markets. If you want to see how, like the equity markets are basically attached to the hip, right? US equities dominate, and that flows into usually the Asian equities and then the European equities. They're a sort of mirror of each other, unless there's obviously a localized event which would change things. And I don't know if I've got one there for the stocks because it's like individual stocks. I don't track a lot of individual stocks myself, but you could set up a page there for the individual stocks. And same with the commodities. Actually, I've got more relative strength stuff there than the general screeners. Okay, so that's the general framework for how you can easily build and apply the screeners, right? So you know what, you can actually, as I said, just think about what you're looking at, and you're thinking, you know what, how can I get a bit more information about how the safe havens are behaving? And as I just explained to you, you could actually very easily do that. And once again, you might just go and say, you know, I'm just going to insert another header row here and just go safe havens, right? I'll just right click on that to give it a bit of color so I know what I'm looking at. Just hit apply. And if I'm looking at the safe havens, right, sort of say, look at gold. You can actually have a few metals in here, wouldn't hurt. Palladium, you can put your favorite ones in. But the DX, the dollar index, you know, at some stage the dollar will become the safe haven if everything blows up. Now, I would prefer to put the US dollar in here against, when the yen against the dollar, so you can see what the raw move is on the yen. Okay, and then the Swiss. I would definitely start to include cryptos, even though I don't really trade them, okay, actively. So from there, then you could put in the, so if I wanted to put in the Japanese bonds, oh, why isn't it letting me put that row in there? Sorry, I've got looking at the wrong button. Okay, insert header row. Then I can come back and put some Swiss bonds. Punch those in there, have those there as well. And you know what, I could actually sort of drag down here if I wanted to just get a little bit creative and move things around. Just click on your left mouse at the top of US Treasuries and grab the rest of them. And then you can just drag those down below the safe havens. Didn't actually do a good job on that. So I'll just need to drag these ones up. Okay. So you can easily move things around where you need to see them. Once again, just change the color, get a color that I can see. And then you just punch in the Swiss bonds and the yen Japanese bonds. And then you can actually start to see some sort of relationship between those various bonds, right? Sometimes they'll be like correlating massively and you'll see the movements in dollar yen and dollar Swiss very clearly. Other times it may not be that active, but that's the way you can actually set these up. Okay, so it's super easy. And actually, if I just come back and just show you, okay, let me just come back to the bonds page, right? So you are setting up a page here. So I want the Swiss bonds. What I can do is I can just left click on the Swiss bonds. actually, I'll just go the whole section there. Copy. Now, if I come back to my other page, mate, it's so easy to do this stuff. Oh, what are you doing there? If I just copy, paste. Hang on, I better come back to the bonds page because you can copy and paste these things across, right? So if I just come back to that page. Come on, don't let me down now. Oh, hang on. You got to put your finger on the right button. That's something we're going to do. Control C. All right, let me just come back to the other page. Just a copy and paste situation. Okay, let me just get rid of this one. Right click, just go delete row. Okay, so I've got the bonds there, and you know what? I don't want the Canadian bonds getting in the way. So I can just hit delete. I've got my yen bonds there. I'll give that a bit of color. Let's give it something else. Let's go. Well, that's a bit funky, but that'll do for now. Okay, so then you got your bonds here, right? And you can start to see, even you may even have the yen crosses, but if you've got dollar Swiss, so whether it's the safe havens or the other instruments, on a long-term perspective, if I was looking at that and I didn't have any idea about what was going on, and I told you that interest rates were a key driver of currency strength, okay, and or weakness, you can see the US treasuries are going up and much greater than in relative terms to the Swiss and the yen bonds. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, that's interesting. Wish I had seen that before. And if I just shrink that page and you come back and have a look at dollar Swiss and dollar yen, okay, I'm on the global page there. Let me just come back to here. And you can see dollar Swiss and dollar yen going up. Now, there are other contributing factors, short-term movements around economic numbers, but long-term wise, that does have a big impact on the direction of the various instruments, right? So you can start to sort of get a feel for how these things are behaving. And if I just come back and then come back to my major page, I've got my monitor here. And the last thing you want to do is actually just save it, right? Save that. You can change the name of it. So if I just go up here and I might just go save as US, let me just type in here, US, actually, I might just put some numbers, US, Swiss, and yen. Okay, and that could be the name of the monitor, right? So you can actually call it whatever you like. It will be saved as that, and there it goes. So you've got your monitor saved, and what you can, as I said, I've got loads of monitors up here. So you'll end up with a whole range of different monitors for different things. It's going to make trading easier to see various things as you go through your trading day. All right. And as I said, like just looking at a page like this, if it doesn't make sense to you now, why I've got it set up like this, well, have a look through the videos and the course and these sorts of things, but then start to build your own profile. As I said, I've just showed you one there around looking at some bonds and various instruments. It's going to give you greater control over your trading decision process. Like if I had a quick snapshot of this, and I know the instruments haven't moved far. If I was looking at the Aussie, I'm like, hang on, the Aussie dollar's going down against most things. Okay, I could go and research why that is, or if I was already short, I could feel very comfortable and start to look for those opportunities there as well. Okay, oil's falling. You can see it very easily. Okay, any questions there, Raz, Rajinder?
But I just wondered on the example you showed where you created the list. On this particular one you've got up on your screen, it's got two sides to it, the left and the right side.
Yeah.
How do you add the second?
That's actually a very good question, right? So this is one difference between MetaStock and the new LSEG workspace is this just flows from one side to the other. So what you would do is you just keep building one side of it up, okay? And let me just come over to the other screen. I'll show you on the one I've built. Okay, I'm on that screen. Okay, so what you do is you come down here to preferences. This is a very important question. I should have mentioned this. So when you've got this page here, okay, so there's a couple of things to note, right, with the actual preferences here of this page. Now, hang on, am I on the right page? Sorry, I wasn't on the right page there. So just having a look here, there's a couple of different things. You can set up this to show custom data feeds, the row height. Okay, you can change that as well. Now, if I just actually go in there and change that, okay, you might go compact. Obviously, will make things squished up a little bit if you want to get a bit more data in there, or just visually, depending on the size of your screen. Once again, just click on those horizontal 3 lines, come down to preferences. You can go spacious. Okay, see it a bit better. Once again, just come up, preferences. Just have a fiddle with this, right? So if I go regular, news sources, do I need to see the news source? I generally don't, but I can actually include more news if I want to. News sources. Now, this is the important part that you were just asking me there about the pages. Now, with MetaStock, right, these are one big giant page. And so at the moment, because I've only got enough data in the screen, I put it as don't wrap. But if I want to see this thing, so I had two parts here, I go, I can do auto wrap or wrap after a certain amount. So if I just go down here, and make it say 20, okay, see, then it goes onto the other screen, right? So this is where you might, especially with 2 screens, you might just come in and go, oh, I can't see anymore, right? Because I've got so much data in there. So you can come down to compact, hit OK, and then this is where you would start to adjust the size of your columns, right? To make sure you get the 2 screens in there. The other thing is, so, and if you're very close to the bottom, right, of the page, you just come in because you want this page to be at the bottom, right? So you might go, hang on a second, I just want to get this right on the line. So it wraps it at the bottom of the page instead of you scrolling down. Then you can just change the actual the preferences there on the wrap itself. Or you can just come over here and go multiple tables, 2, and then it will add a separate. So you can either have one big giant monitor or 2, right? That actual feature isn't on the LSEG one. It's actually a bit of an error on their part. So that's if I go don't wrap, okay, it'll just bring the page back into one alignment.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so that's that was a good question because it was probably a key part to where people would get confused with how do I do that. And there's a few other bits and pieces there you can look at. You can set as once you've set up one, you can set it as the default or load system default or load user default. All right, so that's a good thing to know how to do. All right, so you should have some fun with that, right? And do not, and like as I said, you can actually save these as all different templates and different things. So say, for instance, you are trading in the UK session, just have one specific page, everything related to sterling, whether it's, you know, bond related, currency related, equity related, and a whole range of other things in there as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, so that was good, right? This is just an easy walkthrough. This is something you will do. You know, I would suggest you do if you've got a bit of spare time, put some music on or whatever you like to do that relaxes you, and just start to sort of piece it together. It's like putting together a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. And as I said, you can come up and easily come through and check out how you like the display, right? Whether it's general, heat map, or a bar. Okay, then, and once you've got it the way you like it, you know what'll happen? You'll feel more comfortable in front of the screens because you're looking at the data the way you want to see it. You can see with the color preferences what is happening, and this is all about creature comforts, right? Because once it comes down to trading, the last thing you want to know is be stressing or getting emotional over not being able to see specific data. Okay. All right. Well, that's a pretty good walkthrough there, guys. And if you have any other questions, jump on the Discord. But I think that's a wrap as far as showing you how to build the screener pages. It will be beneficial for you. Just take your time and set these things up correctly. All right, guys. We'll catch you later on.
Cheers.